If you like this channel and what I do here, please help to support my work by checking out one of my books, available from Lulu Publishing and Amazon.com. Thank you. Hi folks, Carl James here from Electric Media Madness, joined again by Dan Ryan. Welcome back, how you doing, mate?
Very unmotivated, honestly. Spent a week, been playing 2 excellent games on my new PS5, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna watch some more Deep Space Nine because I'm going through that. And I watch some a good episode, a very good episode, statistical probabilities. I'm like, yes, let's watch some more. And I'm like, it's Thursday tomorrow. I need to catch up.
Why do we ever inflict these things on ourselves? I really do. So that means it must be that time again. Star Trek Discovery. A lot's happened actually in the last week. There's something that I am going to talk about in this video. I'm not going to get into it at the beginning. We're going to talk about the episode first, but it has heavily informed the way I'm thinking about Star Trek now. Naturally it would, and it would with, I know it already has with a lot of other people. It's something that we've already known, but now we have the evidence of it. We've actually got the outright evidence of it, but we'll come to that later. For now, we'll start with this episode, which is episode 7 of season 3, called Unification 3, or part 3, depending on how you look at it. So do you want to run through like a little plot synopsis?
So they decrypt the data from the last black box, and they see yes, there is actually a very very slight time difference, to the point where does it even matter that much? Like a half a microsecond? Does it really matter? It's like a slight time difference, so they're like, okay, we and they find this. Oh god, I can't even remember what it was. It's not even been that long since I watched the episode. That SB something.
Yeah, SP-19. Where they get these names and ideas from. I think it wasn't like a triangulation of 3 starship black boxes or something like that. So from that they were able to get sort of like a vague idea of what the source
and they
of the
think
burn was.
That it's really, well, no, they think this SB thing kind of has records of what happened.
Yeah, which will make it more accurate, so they've got the full data, and then they'll be able to get the actual source of the burn.
Yeah. So they're like, okay, we need the data for this. They ask the Admiral, and the Admiral says, we don't have it. It's on, what's the planet called now?
Well, this is right. Okay, so funnily enough, ages ago, do you remember the Family Guy spoof of Star Wars?
Yeah.
And the old man guy.
Herbert,
Herbert. He's doing like Obi-Wan Kenobi in it, and they go to the canteen and goes, "We're looking for Dave Navarro," right? So it's like, so one of the standing jokes recently is in the Mandalorian, there's this planet called Navarro. So everyone's just like, I came up off the top of my own head, but all of a sudden, loads of other YouTubers are doing it as well. They call it Planet Dave Navarro. So, and then in this episode, we get a planet called Navarre, Dave Navarro. So it's Planet Dave Navarro number 2, which is actually Vulcan.
Yeah, they did that. Yeah. They renamed that.
They did that. So they've just renamed this planet that's there throughout the whole history of Star Trek, just as you do. Just rename it because it's not convenient anymore to call it Vulcan. So, yeah. Sorry, carry on.
So, yeah, they do that. And you find out as well that, Spock, he completed his task and he helped them to unify, but not really, because there's still loads of conflicts and stuff, so... Yeah. They kind of undermine.
I would argue that Spock didn't really do that, so they've kind of not really understood. Because if you look at granted, this is all kind of like JJ Trek, and Kurtzman Trek era. But in the 2009 film, he was on Romulus when the supernova type thing happened, and then he travelled back in time. Certainly, the Romulans and the Vulcans weren't united at that point. Then he was moving the unification process forward, but not sort of massively. And then he travelled back into the past, where he lived out the rest of his days. So he didn't really unify them.
I mean, he set it in motion. So.
He set the ball in motion, but in this episode, they're talking about it as if he did it, right? But jumping a little bit ahead here, but I'm not going to jump too far ahead because obviously I want you to carry on with what you were saying. But the reason why I think that was done was basically just to glorify Michael Burnham in a nutshell. Yeah. But we'll come to why that is.
Oh yeah.
So carry on. Yeah.
And then she's looking over, like, obviously because all of this stuff that's happened after they go to the future. So she's looking at all the records, and we get to see a lovely little recording of Spock.
Which is sacrilege, to be honest, in Star Trek Discovery. But any other time, I would have thought, oh yeah, that's nice. But not here. No.
Yes, it's not Edgelord Spock. It's not.
No, it's not Ethan Peckerwood.
No.
It's all proper, the real Spock.
It's the real,
the classic,
original.
The one and only, in my opinion. Leonard Nimoy. Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to see at least, I guess, a little bit.
It dirties it. It dirties it for me, especially given what I've. No. I'll have to agree to disagree with you on that one. But in any other circumstances, yes, I completely get what you're saying. It's a lovely little nice thing, He's anytime we see Leonard Nimoy doing Spock, it's very, very welcome. But I can't condone it in this.
I suppose they've ruined the character enough that. Yeah.
Well, given what we found out in the last week or two, they've ruined a lot more than the character. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
So she. I can't even fucking remember the order. It's literally been less than like. I literally watched it like 5 hours ago.
Yeah, she goes to Admiral Vance, doesn't she? She goes to Admiral Vance and says, can we basically just go there and find out what's going on, because we've got the spore drive, blah blah blah. So they mushroom into orbit of planet Dave Navarro too, and she does this she says, I've got this information, this evidence, blah blah blah, and the president, or which is a woman, naturally it would be Kirsten Byers writing the episode, beams aboard. No, initially it's just a hologram, isn't it? A transmission. And she says, we've got, we can't justify this information you've got. And she does this thing which has never been heard of before, this Vulcan challenge. And it's like to scientific truth and all this crap, which is a total farce.
Logic and scientific truth.
Yeah. He's about as far away from logic and science as you can get with Star Trek Discovery. But yeah. So I don't know if you want to carry on from there, or I
think around here is where we get our nice little twist in the episode, a nice little surprise. Now it's flicking back to Discovery like it normally does, with all the other shit that goes on. And it's Saru and Tilly talking, and she's like, he's like, that she says that must have been hard for you, demoting Michael Burnham. He's like, it was. Would you like the position?
Yeah, I know, and I was like, what?
Like, the fuck? What the fuck?
I did actually write that on my notes.
I also did.
WTF, yeah, because and she says like, as she does all that kind of thing, and he's like, well, you didn't pass the command training program thing and all that, but you flew through a wormhole 900 years into the future. That makes you like, and I'm thinking, so did the rest of the bloody crew. Everybody on the ship did exactly the same thing as she did. So it's not even an argument. It's not even a reason.
If we're talking about experience, like that sort of thing, then surely it'd be the engineer. because he's been in the network, or the Doctor, he's been dead.
Yeah.
So why?
And in terms of, I suppose, in terms of responsibility and all that, because, I mean, you could argue, like, say, Giorgio, but she's just too much of a loose cannon to be a first officer.
It'd be a good laugh, though. So
well, yeah. There probably are a number of crew members that you could. Well, not that we've ever seen any of them, because they're all like ensigns and like high-fiving each other and everything and all that. You know what I mean? But Stamets, yeah, he seems to be responsible. He's got leadership skills. He's got the scientific knowledge, the experience. Then they would argue and say, well, really, he's needed as chief engineer, but seeing as Mikey Spock knows how to do everything anyway, just make her the chief engineer and put him in second in command, Not fucking Tilly, of all the... Put Books fucking Cattins as a first officer instead of anybody. Gee.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Words fail me. It is purely Kirsten Beyer saying, this character... who, I'm not going to mince any words here, she's a moron, making her the first officer. She's neurotic, she's emotionally unstable, she's, you would not want somebody like that to have your back in a crisis situation.
No, definitely not.
You would not, really not.
The funny thing as well,
it would be you'd be putting the entire crew's lives at risk.
The funny thing as well, they're like, this is a political platform. We are representing minorities or stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So they demote a person of colour and then promote a white person. Yeah,
I know.
That's not going
this
towards their
proves
political
that
thing.
They just do not have a clue that, they're grandstanding about their identity politics now. They just do not have a clue how to properly instigate it. They're absolutely clueless. Absolutely clueless.
Oh, you can see that.
And we'll talk about that further on when we get into what we found out recently as well. But yeah,
you can see as well they don't know what to do, because they brought 2 lots of representation in for this season, and they have done literally nothing with them.
I know. Yeah,
I'm really surprised
Book,
at how.
Who's a good character as well. Yeah. Book is a great character. I do quite like the character. By the standards of Star Trek Discovery, anyway.
Yeah.
In comparison to other characters, other shows, he's a bit meh. But he's likable.
Yeah.
He's not offensive.
And you've got Adira and
Lady Adira.
Her boyfriend's name I don't remember. But they bring them in. They bring that representation and make a huge deal about it. Give them no screen time whatsoever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, you really have to wonder what the hell they're playing at, or what drugs they're on when they're making this show, because they clearly don't really.
Their one aim, they're half-arsing it.
Yeah, exactly. It shows that they're not true to their principles. That it's
not
just
all,
tokenistic and it's virtue signaling and that. No, it's not. This doesn't come from a genuine place. Star Trek's always actually, in the past, pre-JJ and the JJ Brigade, it always has been quite remarkably true to its principles. Not now, though. Yeah. So anyway, plot.
But most of this episode is just the logic battle. It's not really logic, but...
It's like a sort of a weird logic trial, isn't it? It's like she's trying to... And the irony of it is, it all ends up being about emotion.
Yeah.
And not remotely about science or logic. And I've got some really choice quotes as well, which when we're finished talking about the plot, I'll go through some of them. But it's all emotion.
The thing, right, her evidence are 3 signals that she literally says herself she's not confident in.
Yeah.
So, where's the evidence? Yeah. She has nothing. When the one in the middle said, let's throw this out, they should have gone, yeah, she has nothing.
Yeah. And again, this shows how absolutely incompetent the writers are on this show, because it's a bit like the AI that was an AI that wasn't an AI that wanted to become an AI. Because this scenario is exactly the same, right? She's got these 3 coordinates, but in order to verify it, she needs the information from them, but she's presenting the 3 findings that she's got to get the information from them. Do you see where I'm coming from? She needs that information to prove it, but that's what she's there to do, to try and get that information. It's just totally nonsensical. They thought, oh, this will be good. This will look cool. This will seem really profound. And it's like they they thought it up in 3 seconds while they were on the crapper, basically, because it's just
They did that with the whole Michael Burnham not knowing if she belongs or whatever. That got resolved pretty
yeah,
quickly.
because that was the one thing that had a glimmer of something interesting about Star Trek Discovery last week. And I said that in my previous review, and I felt really for actually saying something good about Star Trek Discovery, especially given what I've found out more recently. But I actually, when I look at the crew of Discovery and look at how narcissistic they are, how they all seem to be acting, well, a number of them seem to be acting like victims. They're virtue signaling. They all they're like neurotic. They're all crying all the time and then laughing like hyenas. It's like they're the most emotionally unbalanced and unstable group of people you would ever wish to meet. And quite frankly, if I was around those people, I would want to leave as quickly as possible, because I'd be thinking my sanity, my mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being is going to get severely damaged by any prolonged amount of time around these people. So I actually, for the first time, I actually thought that, good, get out of there while you can, Mikey Spock. Get out of there quick. I liked that. Now, that wasn't the reason why she was leaving. She was leaving because she got conflicts of interest with the way Starfleet worked now, and the fact that she'd been demoted and having a bit of a paddy about it. She can't do what she wants, having a strop. But I still liked this idea that she was thinking, you know what, I'll go with Book. We'll go off and we'll do it our own way. Because I'm a big believer in non-conformity. I pride myself on the fact that I am, as wherever I possibly can in life, try to be a non-conformist, and I like that in other people as well. I like that in I think it's a very healthy thing when you surround yourself with people who are non-conformists, fight the system, question things, and that you get a much more enriched life, spiritual, emotionally, psychological, all that kind of thing. So I like the fact that all of a sudden her non-conformity actually made sense to me for a split second. At the end of that, and they've totally just pissed that away in this episode.
They've got no balls.
Yeah.
They set up
they
so
don't
much
stick
stuff.
to their commitments, do they?
They set up so much stuff that maybe could be okay, and they can't. They haven't got the balls to go through with it.
No, they do not follow it through at all. No, because by the end of this episode, she's like, "I'm staying."
She's like a loyal follower now.
She's with the cause. Yeah.
God.
Sorry, all I was going to say was that I just feel like the internal logic of the show was, if she'd have left, it's almost like saying, this is a shit show, I don't want to be a part of it anymore. It's almost like they're doing that, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to make one of their characters do that, because it undermines everything that they are trying to, what they're trying to preach about and do. So that was never going to happen. So I feel a bit naive, and I'm not normally a naive person, but I feel a bit suckered by that one, because I even thought that they might go through with it. But
most of this episode is just boring. It's this boring trial thing.
I mean, it goes nowhere. I mean, they tried to make it look like this was this big wow moment where Michael Burnham's mom turns back up again, which that felt completely flat. That did, because the character is one-dimensional anyway. There's really nothing to that character. It's all about affirming Michael Burnham, isn't it? That's what what all these characters are, with the exception of Tilly. She's another one who's like, got to big her up kind of thing. So it's really those couple of characters. That's it. Giorgio to some degree, but Saru is always getting short shrift in this show. The rest of the characters, they're just glorified extras floating around in the background, either crying, shouting, or high-fiving each other and laughing and doing
that. But mostly crying.
Mostly crying, yeah. And that really is it. That really is it. It's the Tilly Michael Burnham show for the most part, with a little here and there Tignataro, and Giorgio. And that's about it. Oh, and occasionally you get your like you say, you get barely used Stamets really this season. No. And his doctor partner, he's barely been in it either. And of course, like you say, they made such a noise about Tal and Lady Dara, but really not had that much screen time at all.
I think I've got to a point in the show now where I think like my favourite two characters are actually the doctor and the engineer, because they have like they actually have some form of charisma and like
Yeah,
happiness,
and
and
there's
it's actually a
vaguely
bit
something
relieving.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's vaguely something normal about these two characters.
Mm.
They're like act like normal, mentally healthy
Yes.
human
Yeah.
beings would act, for the most part. And I hate having to say that. Anything good about Star Trek Discovery sticks in the back of my throat. But yeah, you're right. You're right.
They
Actually,
act like
it's
when
the
they're
fact that
together, they're just
they're
normal.
not yeah, they're not don't appear to be like emotionally like a bag of
Yeah.
a bag of a wreck, like
Mm.
completely totally unstable and
Yeah.
irrational and that. They do seem to be reasonably consistent, which consistency is not something that ever really happens in Discovery. So when those moments do happen, it's almost like it's a shock. But
Yeah.
um we it's damn it, we can't, we have to keep in mind that we can't make these good things. It's just that there just happen to be vaguely normal things in an
Yeah.
absolute fucking dumpster fire of a television show,
Yeah.
if you could even call it that. So they stick out like a sore thumb when normal things are there,
Yeah.
because the rest of the show is so crazily, absurdly abnormal
Mm.
and just functioning on a completely bizarre level of sanity that most normal human beings don't think that way or act that way. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I think. I mean, really, just to tie up the rest of the plot, she kind of just backs out on it, doesn't she? This
Yeah.
trial of logic science thing, and she's like, "Oh, it's all about emotion." Da, 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 da.
She's like,
But
I
then,
don't want to drag you into it or anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
But two things come out of that. One is that the prime minister woman, president, I think it is, um, gives her the information anyway, after her crying and all the rest of it, which goes against everything that Vulcans stand for, I suppose.
Mm.
But you could argue that maybe that 900 years in the future, maybe Vulcans are far more emotional now. Certainly got that impression that there's more going on in the way of emotion now. And
They
you could
didn't
also
seem
argue
logic
because
based.
they're sort of mixed with the Romulans now in cultural ways and society. You presume that they've also sort of intermixed in terms of biology as well. I'm assuming that some level of that has gone on. So that's probably changed the way Vulcan's society works. I suppose to some degree Romulans as well, but I didn't get that impression with the Romulans here. They still seemed very
Yep.
much like the way Romulans behaved. Um, but the thing of it is here, although it's not directly said, you can tell what is being said, is that Spock started this process of unification, and you finished it,
Yeah.
Michael Burnham. You've
Yeah.
completed his. You are Spock now.
Yeah.
That's basically what they're trying to say, aren't they?
Yeah. Well,
They're trying to say,
you made Spock who he is,
well,
and
that was
you
another thing. Yeah,
now
you made
continue
Spock
him.
yeah, and now you're continuing his work, and in a nutshell, for all intents and purposes, you are now greater
Yeah.
than Spock.
Yeah.
You've surpassed Spock.
You made him and you surpassed
You
him,
make you
and it's
Not
just
only did you
yeah.
make Spock who he was, you
Yeah.
finished his work, and now you've succeeded him effectively.
Mm.
I mean, how arrogant is that? In terms of I don't even want to use the word creatives, the shills that run this show, um, just dropping the kegs and just doing a great big shit all over Star Trek mythology. In a nutshell, that's the way I see it.
It doesn't even surprise me anymore. I'm just like,
No,
yeah, yeah.
no, not at all, not at all. So I think we've pretty much covered the plot there, haven't we? I mean, Book decides to stay around. I mean, he's a bit sort of pussy whipped there, because he's like, my life is you. That's a bit of a disturbing way to think, to make one person your life. Where's his own internal self? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Everything is about bigging up Michael Burnham and to a lesser degree Tilly. So that's consistent. That's about the only thing that is consistent about this show. He asks her, "Are you going?" And she's like, "No, I'm not now." And then she's like, "Are you going?" And I don't think he actually says directly, "No, I'm not," but he's like, "Well, yeah, I can hang around, all this kind of thing." So that's kind of where it's left.
They'll have him in uniform before the end of the next
Oh
episode, probably.
yeah, yeah. It won't be before the end of the season. He'll be in uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's
So,
that scene as well, right at the end of the episode, where they're all in the like engineering.
oh, God.
And
Yeah.
they're all like,
Tilly comes marching
yes,
in.
say yes, yes.
Yeah, Tilly,
Yeah,
Tilly, Tilly.
it was so
and it's
cringe.
and I think I'll put him in. Yeah, say yes. They're saying, and Stamets says, "We'd all follow you anywhere." And I just thought to myself, "What a bunch of morons! You know, you really are. You really are."
Yeah.
She's going to be about as much use as a chocolate fire guard for this crew. She really is. She's going to just. Yeah. But no, she won't. That she won't actually, because they'll show how she's, you know, she's worthy of it. She's worthy of being number one. And
You know,
Michael Burnham actually calls her number one,
yeah.
number one. You're number one. You're number one. So it's all there. It's blatant what's going on.
Now that she is like the first officer, I'm doubling down on my prediction for the start of the season. I think they're gonna kill Saru and make her the captain.
You know what? I laugh, but I would not put it past them. I would not put it past them at all.
They'll do it. I think maybe.
Yeah, with Michael Burnham as her first officer.
Yeah. Mm.
You know, it would be worth seeing. It would be worth seeing, just so we can just laugh hysterically,
Yeah.
like they do in the show. At this utter
and cry in
trash fire.
pain, like they do.
Yeah, and cry in pain. Yeah. It's just an utter. Yeah. So, did you have any notes or anything that you wanted to? I've got a few.
It was just sort of moaning about the fact that imagine you join a company. Let's say you join Tesco. Okay, that's just the first thing that comes to mind. You join Tesco.
Well, let's say for the purposes of any non-UK people, think of like say Walmart or something like that. Yeah.
You join the supermarket, okay, and your job is to work in the warehouse or stack shelves, okay, and you've got someone who's been working there for like 5+ years, and the position opens up of assistant manager. And well,
they've probably even worked their way up as well.
Yeah,
worked their way up and done all the jobs and that, and got the respect of everybody in the company.
And then this person who has joined and been there like a week stacking shelves gets the assistant manager position.
Yeah, who puts everything on all the wrong shelves, burns the stock, and destroys the.
And that's who they pick. It's like
that's who they pick.
Why?
Yeah. Which is consistent with their politics. That's the way they view the world. You know.
It's so disrespectful to every other member of the crew.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is, and it makes sense. You know, you can see the internal when he says to her, "You've travelled through a wormhole 900 years," and I said, "Yeah, so is the rest of the fucking crew." You know, everybody on the crew has done exactly the same thing as her. Why? That's not a reason. That is not a reason.
Not at all.
That's the reason he gives. He also makes a point of saying, well, you didn't pass the command program, but you travelled. Yeah, so did everybody else. So why? Why her? He doesn't even give a reason.
No.
Doesn't even give a reason.
Because they couldn't think of one.
Because they couldn't think of one,
there isn't one.
It was just Kurtzman Boyer wanted Tilly to become, front and centre alongside Michael Burnham. Yeah. That purely... It was identity politics. It was a platform, and we have proof of that now, and we will get into that shortly. Yeah.
I think briefly before we continue, we should talk about the positives of this episode, right?
Okay. Did you?
We have finished. We have finished. Now on to the next part.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
So yeah, they're the positives. We can continue now.
I'll just quickly go through a couple of little bits of dialogue that I picked up on. There's an odd line where Admiral Vance says. They think we forced them to cause the burn. That it doesn't even make sense.
No.
That sentence does not even make sense. So again, Kirsten Boyer, so Christian Boyer or Kirsten Boyer, however you say it. So the Vulcans are taking responsibility effectively for the burn, but the data proves that there's another source and all that. So I mean, none of that makes any sense whatsoever.
No.
The more you look at it, it just does not make any sense at all. I put here a bit sarcastic but true. Spock's sister is now the key to saving the universe, because they send her off, don't they? They basically say, you are the only person who can do this. You are the only person who can go and engage with the Vulcans, the Romulans, some of the oldest, most powerful races in the galaxy, and you're the only person that can do this. Nobody else. There's countless numbers of people in our galaxy. Only she can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she basically is saving the universe. As Doomcock would say, she's the bestest ever. And she really is the bestest ever in this one, in terms of, right up there. This is like total, lots of things in terms of Michael Burnham, but mainly coming from Book, talking about like a God complex or something like that. And then there's another one where he says about Michael Burnham and Spock. It says, you guys are chronic overachievers. So again, bigging them up, I mean, Spock's only thrown in there to virtue signal about Michael Burnham, really. It's only to big. Anytime they ever keep throwing Spock into it, is just to elevate Michael Burnham onto this level of like. The truth fact of the matter is, anybody who really appreciates Star Trek, understands it, loves it, Michael Burnham will never be the character that Spock was, ever.
No.
Under any circumstances. No matter what they do to the character, no matter what they try to do, she could save every life in the entire universe.
She already
she
did,
probably
remember?
will do.
She
But
already did at the
yeah.
end of season
Well, she actually
10.
says that. She goes to them and says, we've saved everybody. I saved everybody. No. You wouldn't be here without us. And her mom's going, yes, yes, you are the greatest ever. Yes, she's going, isn't she? And her tears are streaming down her face, naturally, because it started to come out. Yes, she's going like this. And, it's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
I bet whenever they film a scene, they have to, like, down a gallon of water so they don't get dehydrated. Because they're crying that much, you must be dehydrated.
Yeah, too dehydrated, yeah. And then this line from the Vulcan president woman, even science cannot be separated from cultural and political context. There are always implications. That is what they've done to Star Trek. So it's a summation of it's the writer's perspective on Star Trek now. Science is like metaphorically, Star Trek is a way of saying this is science fiction, right? But they're saying it cannot be separated from cultural and political context. They're actually saying it there in the episode. And now Star Trek has always been, many occasions over its history, has been about cultural and political context, particularly in the 60s. With the civil rights movement, and all that, you got let that be your last battlefield with the the half-faced aliens and that, and the kiss between her and Kirk, all kinds of things, all kinds of metaphors about the Vietnam War, and it goes on and on into the 80s and 90s Star Trek, exactly the same thing. But it's never been that they cannot be separated, because Star Trek's done many pure science fiction stories that were just great, thoughtful science fiction stories. They weren't that they didn't on those occasions do cultural and political context, so they can be separated, very much so. You can do a political and cultural episode on its own. You can do a science fiction episode on its own. No, now they cannot be.
No.
In fact, if anything, this is the priority, and we'll get into what that is in a minute as well. So I also noticed that the Koat Malat are back from Star Trek Picard. Those Romulan priest women that Mikey Spock's mom is now just conveniently just happens to be one of them. So yeah, I mean, figure that one out.
Because why not just use a fucking gun when but no swords. Ooh, yay.
And also it again, it's that thing of like the Romulan priestesses are now massively influencing Vulcan culture. So again, it's a priesthood, a female priestesshood is now influencing Vulcan culture and society and that. So that again, from the writer of the episode, not surprised. Saru, we learn our greatest lessons when we pay a heavy price. In my head, that sounded like you can only learn anything when you are being humiliated or bending the knee or something like that. But it's blatant what they're saying. We only learn our greatest lessons when we pay a heavy. So you've got to pay a heavy price to learn anything. You've got to submit to learn.
School must be really hard then.
Yeah. Well, not unless you're Tilly. Unless you're Tilly, you don't even have to complete it. You just get you fly through a wormhole along with a load of other people, but you get the job. So, which sums up the state of Hollywood
It
nowadays.
does, yeah.
It certainly sums up the state of this show. So, 2 more quotes. The last one's a doozy, but we'll just do this one first. Duty and joy go hand in hand. Mummy Burnham. And there's no joy on this show.
Yeah, but okay. One thing I actually jotted down was the follow up to that is like joy is there, so you have something to fight for. What does that even mean?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's just one of these things that people say, thinking that they sound really, really profound.
They just sound like a tit.
Yeah, you sound like a knob. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and there's no joy in this show really, anyway, is there? How can they say you're getting any joy out of it? There's no joy in watching it, and there's no joy for the crew, or they don't seem to. And every time they look like they're doing anything joyful,
It
all
feels
forced and
yeah.
fake, and doesn't feel real. Feels like they're just basically trying to be what the Orville does so easily. We've had this conversation many times,
Yes. We
and
even basically made a video about that.
Yeah, that's right. We did a couple of videos back. Yeah, is the Orville the Star Trek everybody wanted? We know full well that it is. yeah. So this is my last little bit that I pulled from the dialogue. Knowledge in the wrong hands is a dangerous thing. And the reason why I note that is because there is this idea that, which is a nice segue into what we'll talk about in a second, is this idea that if you have knowledge, knowledge is power. Knowledge sets you free. When you learn, when you gather evidence about things in the world, it gives you informed choice. It gives you a standing to make better decisions in life. You're not fully informed if you don't have that knowledge, if you don't have that evidence. And we know that this show is a political platform. It's an agenda. It has an agenda. And they are saying here that knowledge in the wrong hands is a dangerous thing. Who decides what the wrong hands are? Whose hands are wrong? Right? So we talk about what is fundamentally wrong with Star Trek now, and that there are agendas behind it. But because we are pointing to evidence, which we're going to do in a minute, because we're pointing to evidence, and we are showing what they're doing, we're automatically labelled as being the wrong hands, and that we're dangerous for pointing these things out. But they're deciding that we're the wrong hands. They're deciding that what we're doing is dangerous. All we're doing is just pointing out the facts.
It's quite funny that the shitty TV show that has like low ratings from actual fans are telling you what to think.
Yeah, they are absolutely, and nothing more so than what. Unless there's anything else you wanted to say about the episode,
No,
we'll just brief.
Shit and boring.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go into a bit of information now. I mean, jump in whenever you want to. We have to be careful how we present this information on YouTube because of the way YouTube is nowadays. You can say things that are just about presenting information, evidence, and nothing more. There's no bias behind what we're saying, other than our bias that Star Trek Discovery is shit.
Yeah.
And that the people that run Star Trek now do not have a clue how to make Star Trek, and that the Star Trek that went before was real Star Trek and so much better. That's the only bias I have where this show is concerned. None other than that. So I've been gathering for at least a year or so. I've been gathering information, evidence, I should point out, that there has been a steered agenda behind the sort of what you would call, I suppose, creative decisions. It started with looking into the policies of the BBC with Doctor Who. And when I investigated this, I found an overriding body in the UK that sets guidelines for identity politics in not all of the UK broadcasting channels. So we have the BBC, we have ITV, we have Channel 4, we have Channel 5, you have Sky. So this organisation is called the Creative Diversity Network. And they have a website where they refer to the BBC. So it lays out what the policy is, that the guidance that the policies they've given to them. There's also another one for Channel 4. There's one for ITV. There's one for Sky. Now, this is interesting because there's also one for CBS Viacom. Now, they talk about this because Viacom is they basically own Channel 5 in the UK. So I just assumed that it was just a policy that was set for the UK broadcasting of Viacom, which is i.e. Channel 5. So knowing what we've seen with CBS, and there's a lot of other broadcasters as well in America, but it matches that platform, doesn't it?
Mm. Yeah.
Very much so. So I went on a bit of a mission to try and follow the money, because that's always the best way of doing these things. Try and find out who ultimately is paying for the Cultural Diversity Network. I have some leads. I'm not going to present that information yet because I haven't nailed it down completely. But I found some connections between this setup and British intelligence, basically MI5, MI6, and the UK government as well. I mean, it's not hard to find that information. So going back to what we were talking about with CBS, having that hard proof that the same thing is going on there has always kind of eluded me a little bit. Even though I have contacts in the media, I've asked them to look out for me. Is there a crib sheet? Is there a guidance pieces of paper that says write things like this kind of thing? And it's always been quite elusive to actually nail it down. So recently, I became aware of this in the last week. Two great YouTubers, Robert Meyer Burnett and Gary Beagler from Nerdrotic. They both independently, and I think certainly Friday Night Tights, they discussed it with Gary and all the other guys that were on the panel. And they said, right, we have this documentation now. So they, as much as they could actually talk about it on the show, they did. But they talked about this organization called Right Inclusion, TTIE, which as joked and said titty.
That did go in my mind then. Yeah. I did think that.
Yeah. It's the think tank for inclusion and equality. Not going to get into the reason why any of this is. One specific thing that I wanted to point out about it, but the blurb on the website says we are a consortium of working TV writers comprised of BIPOC, LGBTQIA, disabled and women writers spanning low-level writers to showrunners. Now, I found out that one of the showrunners on Star Trek are part of this organization. That's the first thing. I've been able to independently verify that. But also on there, it says that they are grantees of this thing called the Pop Culture Collaborative and the Roddenberry Foundation. So this is Rod Roddenberry, who basically runs the Roddenberry Foundation, son of the late Gene Roddenberry, is an executive producer on Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard. I think he is for Lower Decks as well. So he gives the final go-ahead on, yeah, you can use this property because it's his dad's. But what's interesting is that, and this is where you go down a very, very deep rabbit hole now. There are evidential links between the Roddenberry Foundation and the likes of the Clintons and the Obamas. I also have evidence connecting more tangential, but it's like Roddenberry and Gene Roddenberry himself, going back to the 60s and 70s, you can trace connections between the Roddenberry family and the Roddenberry Foundation to the likes of like the Rand Corporation, DARPA, the CIA, Stanford Research Institute, the military industrial complex like NASA, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the Planetary Society. If anybody wants to check out all this evidence, check out my books, check out my research. I've done talks on YouTube as well about what I call the Star Trek agenda and things like that. But in Science Fiction and the Hidden Global Agenda, there's chapter after chapter, page after page, laying out all these connections over the history of Star Trek, right from the very beginning to now. But what's interesting now is that it's gone into this weird direction. And you have the Roddenberry Foundation. You've got connections to the United Nations. You've got connections to the Rockefeller Foundation. You've got connections to the Gates Foundation. And there's these tangential connections as well. LeVar Burton, who's affiliated with the Roddenberry Foundation, he's very, very good friends with Bill and Melinda Gates, the Gates Foundation as well. So you really, when you look at this, you are going way down this deep rabbit hole, which is an evidential. It's not what people say, oh, conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy, I suppose, in a way, but it's a factual conspiracy. It's an evidence-based conspiracy where you have all these interests, which it's fundamentally socio-political, and they're laying out a socio-political agenda to everything that's being created in Hollywood now. And Star Trek is clearly part of that, by association with the Roddenberry Foundation being part of this organization. And I encourage people to go away and read about all the different types of guidelines and recommendations and that. For the way characters should be portrayed, how situations should be portrayed in narratives. I'm not going to get into it here because YouTubers will clearly slam us for getting into the ins and outs of it. But the one thing I know I can talk about here is that they say that principally this socio-political agenda is the priority in writing now. And it's not necessary, and it's also detrimental to write, first and foremost, good stories. That is not what is required nowadays. These guidelines set for the way these things are going to be written from now on. So what we have in a nutshell is good stories for any of these creatives, such as they are, that are involved with that pursue these political agendas, these political beliefs, socio-political beliefs. They are not going to write good stories anymore, which explains why Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard, anything under this banner of Star Trek now, is the way it is, because the story is not important, the agenda is. And Kurtzman has openly said it himself, hasn't he? We've mentioned it previously.
Oh yeah, he don't give a shit anymore.
It's a political platform. Yeah. And they're trying to argue now that Kurtzman isn't that involved with Star Trek now, but it's still all being produced by Secret Hideout, which is his company. He gets the final say on the scripts. He gets the final say. He's regularly is still saying, "Oh, do this, do that." I know that because of the contacts I have in the media. So I know that he still very much plays a big role in shaping the Star Trek as it is now.
Well, it's quite obvious. The fact that he's every interview or panel or anything, he's always the forefront. He's not going to be at the forefront if he's got barely anything to do with it.
Yeah. So I would say that those people out there that say this is it's a conspiracy theory or whatever, or it's propaganda, or it's ists and isms as they always throw about. No, it isn't. It isn't at all. There clearly is an agenda, and anybody who sits there and argues against that, at best they're being naive. At worst, they're being ignorant. They really are, because it's clear. It's evidential. It's clear. They've admitted it themselves. We've seen the guidelines now for the way these things are written. I have a lot more evidence, which I'm going to present over time. But because I'm in my alternative knowledge research, I fervently pursue evidence. I have my theories about things. That's normal human nature. That is, I have my opinions on things. But when I get into the thick of my alternative knowledge research, evidence. And I find it very, very annoying sometimes where I say, I can present evidence to you of this. It's up to you to choose whether you want to have a look at it or not. If you don't want to look at it, that's your choice. There's nothing I can do about that. But people are being ignorant if they don't want to look at evidence. And this has evidence now. This has evidence. And there's a lot more to come as well. And I am going to put it together in coherent form. I have some contacts, some sources that are pursuing the money trails for me right down. And we are going to, soon in time, hopefully it won't be too long, we're going to really nail this down, and we're going to be able to say, this is where the money's coming from. We can show you whether this is where the money's come. These are the people behind this. These are the people behind this agenda. And then we'll be having to ask the question, why? I think it's a rhetorical question. I think it speaks for itself why they're doing it. And it's disingenuous. It's disgusting because it's not about representation. It's not about inclusion. It's not about giving people a fair whack and creating that level in society. It's about divisiveness. It's about separating people into tribes, pitting people against each other. It's tokenistic. It's superficial. They don't believe what the things that they're putting in there. We talked about this with this episode, didn't we? It's things that are there that are just, they don't stand to their convictions. They do in putting Tilly in that role as first officer. It's nonsensical. It's just because it's
They didn't make the character develop to earn that.
No, to that point, to deserve that.
Just
exactly.
Take it, have it, whatever.
Yeah, that's right. And I know there are going to be people out there who are going to say this is very, very controversial stuff, but I only really go into these territories when, when the facts are there to show what's going on. We have that now, and I know a lot of other YouTubers haven't been. I've pulled my punches on this one, but I know a lot of other YouTubers out there have really gone down the rabbit hole with it. They might be putting their channels at risk, certainly the videos that they presented them in. But because they don't want people talking about this, they don't want people showing the evidence, and that's what we've got now. Finally, after many years of we've known what's been going on, but we're getting to the point now where we've got the goods to show that this is it can't be denied any longer. And is it a legitimate excuse for making shit television, bad still porter? No, it's not. It's not, in my opinion, and that is my opinion. It's not a justifiably good enough excuse. Have all the messages you want. I love a good message. I love a good morality play. I wouldn't be a Star Trek fan from the past of Star Trek anyway, if I didn't appreciate those kinds of stories. Science fiction does it. When it's done well, it's done fantastically. It makes you think. It broadens your horizons. It broadens your views of the world. It allows you to embrace everybody, because you're a world that's a better place where everybody can live together. And that's a fantastic message, that is. I'm very much a big believer in that. I want everybody to get along in the world, but this is what it is now, isn't it? Yeah. What can you say? There's not much more I can say really on that one, so unless there's anything you wanted to weigh in on that one.
Got to give our juicy scores in a minute.
Yeah, okay then. Right then, I already know my score on this one. Yeah.
Now, I haven't given a Star Trek or anything actually this rating on this channel. Okay.
Right.
Because I don't normally give this rating. It's a cheeky 0.
Yeah.
I don't normally give out this, but this is my. I hit this point in Picard where I was like, fuck this show, really fuck this show, and this episode I'm at it now. I'm fully there.
Yeah, I may. Yeah. I don't actually want to do. If I'm honest, I don't really want. Apart from the fact that I enjoy getting together with you and doing these videos and that, but I don't want to be wasting my time talking about this trash fire. I really don't.
Yeah.
But there's one remaining. Well, I mean, I suppose there's two really. One is to have a good laugh at the absolute ineptitude of the show, but another is to keep, in the same way they're hammering away, we're hammering away back and saying, look, for God's sake, people, look at what they're doing. Look at it. It's staring you right in the face. This is crap. This is absolute crap, masquerading as Star Trek, and it's not. It's not Star Trek at all. I don't know what it is, but it's not Star Trek.
I think it's what I did this morning when I woke up in the toilet.
Yeah. Absolutely right. Absolutely crude but right.
Yeah.
Crude but right.
Check us out next week, Suffering.
Yes. Yeah, we'll be back again. We're taking this one for you guys out there. We really are. Yeah. Good folk out there. Yeah, somebody's got to do it. So for now, then, we'll just say thank you very much for watching. Truly appreciate all your support. Like and share the video about if you can. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We truly, truly, truly appreciate it. We really do. And Dan and I will see you again very, very soon.
Yes.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.